Hey everybody, so I'm back with another review, and this time I'm talking about Detective Comics number 618 to 621. It's a story arc titled Rite of Passage, and this is the second major story to deal with Tim Drake. The first one was Batman: A Lonely Place of Dying, which Captain Logan and I reviewed over on his channel almost years ago at this point. And I'll put a link to that in the description. You can go ahead and watch that. It's probably a good idea to watch that review first, or at least be familiar with that story first, because it'll give you a sense of who this character is before I get into his growth throughout this story. So a brief history. I don't want to ramble on about this for too long, but Robin has been a staple of Batman ever since the 1940s, ever since his first appearance. Robin appeared less than a year, within a year, actually, of Batman's creation. So there was his original Detective Comics run. There was Batman 27 up to about, I want to say 38. And Robin appeared in number 38, and then he appeared in Batman number 1. So Robin's been there since the very beginning. Arguably, Robin is the longest-running side character or partner Batman's ever had. Commissioner Gordon appears in Batman's first appearance back in 27, but he's just there as kind of a conversationalist. He gets a couple appearances here and there, but it's mostly just there to relay information to Bruce Wayne as a friend and nothing more than that. And Alfred doesn't become a thing until much later down the line. We're talking mid to late 40s, Alfred becomes a thing. And even then, he's not the Alfred we know. He is a bumbling private detective who's constantly trying to figure out who Batman and Robin are. So Robin's been a thing with Batman for a really long time. He's built into the mythos. And also importantly, the type of character that Robin was created as has numerous historic roots, because Batman's a Byronic hero. Batman is in the same tradition as people like James Bond, people like Sherlock Holmes, people like Hamlet, and all of these characters have this thing in common where they need someone to talk to be in all of their brilliance, to be our eyes into the magnificent mind of this broody, dark, almost anti-hero-like character. And the danger of not giving them something like that is that they become too stoic and too hard to relate to, and it makes the stories bland. Hamlet has this ability to basically break the fourth wall at points. And it's really subtly done, but he uses the audience as his sounding board. Sherlock Holmes has Watson. James Bond has got all the numerous women that he worked with film to film. He's got Felix Leiter. He's got Q. All of these characters require someone to be with them, to get the proper sense of how they work. And aside from just that literary necessity, Robin's been a character that's embedded itself into the subconscious of Batman and so deeply that it becomes part of his psychology that we just start naturally writing stories where Robin would be really handy, or Robin would be really important, and we naturally want to grow. And every time we try to move Robin away from Batman, all we do is evolve Robin as a concept, and then create a void that we need to fill with another Robin. And this becomes completely clear when you read Lonely Place of Dying, where the entire story is a justification for why Batman needs a Robin. You move over to this story, Rite of Passage, and you get the importance of what the Robin costume means. In this story, we talk very heavily about what Robin has meant to the history of Batman. Because previously in Lonely Place of Dying, it's all about Robin through Batman's lens, and why as Batman, Robin's got to be at your side. Here, it's about what is Robin on his own right? What kind of hero is Robin, not as a character, but just as a concept? And there's been numerous pushes and pulls to make something to fill the Batman void after Jason Todd died. Famously, Jerry Conway had a plan where instead of bringing back the Robin moniker, we would create a character called Raven. And the idea was to do kind of the Jason Todd thing of we want to make a poor black kid from a terrible neighborhood and have Batman pull him in and make him his new sidekick. And that's something that in this day and age would be extremely easy. It's something that We Are Robin is very directly dealing with. It would have been no problem to pass that right now, to have that kind of a character. But back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was a tougher sell. At the same time, Alan Grant, who was a prominent Batman writer before Chuck Dixon took over, said that he created Anarchy, and Anarchy was introduced as a kid. Anarchy even makes an appearance in this story. And there's numerous rumors and stories as to who thought of what, but through some digging, you can find that Alan Grant, in the back of his mind, wanted to grow Anarchy into being the new Robin. It just so happens that Marv Wolfman, Dennis O'Neil, and everybody else in the Bat office had the same idea, and they created Tim Drake. So it was just a matter of great minds thinking alike, and they kind of met in the middle. The brilliance of Tim Drake as a character is there isn't one person that defines his legacy. It's not like Damian Wayne, who and I love Damian Wayne, but Damian Wayne is created by Grant Morrison, for Grant Morrison, is killed by Grant Morrison. Anything after that just doesn't work, not because the stories are bad, but because Damian is a device for Morrison. You look at a lot of Marvel characters. You look at people like Daredevil and Iron Man and Captain America, and all of them have got this one creator that bring out their voice in the most direct way possible. And that's sort of their staple, and that's sort of the thing you run off of. DC characters, because they have a longer history, don't really have that. They're always kind of a trial and error system of stick a writer, gives him something and see if it works, stick in another writer, give him something, see if it works, and by the time you get to the 80s and 90s and you get so many titles going, you had a bunch of writers doing the same character, and they work as a group to try and create the most definitive version of the characters that they can. And Tim Drake came from that. Tim Drake came from this melting pot of ideas where you had Alan Grant in the room, you had Jerry Conway in the room, you had Dennis O'Neil in the room, you had Neil Adams in the room, you had George Perez and Marv Wolfman in the room, you had Chuck Dixon in the room. Essentially, all of the big writers of the day for Batman, all of the classic writers, all of the people that would eventually take over, everyone was there, and everyone had a hand in making who Tim Drake is. And that's part of why he's such a well-executed concept right off the bat. And I'm sorry that this sort of preamble took up as much of the video as it did, but now we can kind of properly talk about Rite of Passage with the weight it deserves, because there's a lot of history that builds into this. So essentially what this story deals with is, and one of the things about Tim Drake as opposed to other Robins is, when he finds out who Bruce Wayne is, when he is on his path to become Robin, he still has both of his parents. And even more than that, both of his parents are extremely rich. So the story opens with Tim just being in the Batcave, hanging out with Bruce, helping him solve a crime wave that has to do with hacking. And in trying to do that, we talk about the fact that Tim's parents are constantly overseas and doing business things, and they never see him. And it makes him kind of lonely, it makes him kind of erratic, but it also makes him more of a cerebral kid. And so Bruce takes over guarding him, and they sort of bond that way very early on, and they have a very tight relationship that you don't see with the other Robins as much. So much to the point where when his parents are kidnapped, Bruce offers to Tim that he'll take the costume off, and he'll take the night off, and he'll just be with Tim if Tim wants him to. And Tim, being a smart, unselfish kid, says, "No, Gotham needs you. This is more important. I will get over it." And that's a really nice, touching moment, because you don't get Bruce trying to be fatherly or friendly very often. Last time I even remotely saw it in this era was back when Frank Robbins was still writing Batman, and we had both him and Dick crying over the fact that Dick was going away to college. And again, that was a very good issue, and it's good to see that side of Bruce. So because the story is about Tim, Batman plays a very side role here. For all 4 issues of this Detective Comics story, Bruce is off doing his own thing. Only in the final issue do we kind of see things through Bruce's lens, but only because it's a flashback where he's relaying information to Tim, and it's all about Tim Drake and how he deals with this information. Most of the story is centered on Tim's efforts to understand what Robin is, what the idea of Robin is, what the weight of Robin means. And he fixates on this idea of the costume. He fixates on this idea of how do you get stronger, and what exactly do superheroes run on? When Bruce is comforting Tim about the fact that his parents have been kidnapped, he's still wearing his costume, and Tim notes that, and he says that it's probably because the Batman costume, the Batman persona, helps him hide his feelings a little bit. And underneath this costume, Batman is still running on nothing but hope, and he sees this is kind of the driving force for all superheroes, that at the end of the day, it's not about the means, it's not about the gadgets, it's not about these tools of the trade, it's about the fact that hoping for a better outcome is what carries you through the day. And we parallel Tim trusting Bruce with this other kid that's part of the family that kidnapped Tim's parents, and this kid's not allowed to see something that his dad's doing, and his dad keeps telling him to just trust him, but he's not giving him reason to, and so there's a very combative relationship between those two. And Tim's got the same thing of Bruce doesn't want him to tag along, Bruce doesn't want him to put on the Robin costume yet, Bruce doesn't want him in the nightlife yet. Not that he won't be in the fold, because he is in the fold, but just to a lesser capacity. The difference here, of course, is Bruce gives him a reason, and Tim is smart and mature enough to realize that it's not about him, it's not about satisfying his curiosity or his emotional need, it's about the bigger idea. And he gets even more consumed with this idea that he's just a kid, so he has all these erratic emotions of anger and resentment and false hope and overzealousness, and he just randomly has spurts of emotion, and he tries really hard to control them. And what he learns at the end of the day is that he wants to become strong, and whether that means being rational and mature or just having hope that there's always something better. And a really interesting thing we hear from Batman as Tim's wrestling with all this is Batman tells him, don't brood too much. And he finishes off his speech to Tim about not worrying by saying, be strong and always remember life has to go on. And so Tim gets this very natural fuel to not only let go of all the anger that he's harbored for the guys that kidnapped his parents, but to realize that anger and emotions are a natural part of him, but they aren't him. He can't lose himself in trying to figure out how the world works and how to become stronger. It's a really touching piece, and it's a really emotional story here and there. What happens near the end is after Batman tries to save Tim's parents, his mother dies and his father becomes paralyzed, and he's just unconscious in the hospital for a good few books. I don't think his father even comes back to Tim until Tim's ongoing series gets started, which is still a couple years down the line at this point. So at that point, Tim starts questioning whether tragedy is just built into the Matrix, that you can't be Robin unless you lose both your parents. And Alfred says he can't afford to think like that it's not about the tragedy, it's not about the anger. That's fuel, that's part of your fire, but it's not who you are. And it's not what the costume is. It's not what the weight of Robin is supposed to be, even if that's the thing that comes back to you at the end of the day. And this theme of hope, this theme of constantly going forward, gets tackled even more when we go on to Batman 455 to 457, which is the next story in chronological order of Tim Drake's passage into becoming Robin. This is really good. I haven't talked too much about the plot as opposed to just talking about the concept of Tim Drake and the history of that Robin blueprint. But I think it's worthy of exploration because Tim's a character that is a fan favorite, but it's so hard to get proper information or proper books on the character or even get into his ongoing series, because DC's really bad about reprinting, and there is a new line that's reprinting the Robin run, but it will take a long time before you get all the way to issue 183. And he's a character that's really near and dear to my heart. When the New 52 screwed him over so badly, I had a hard time not having an emotional reaction to that, just because Tim is such a good character. I defy you to go out and buy this story and not feel for Tim or relate yourself to Tim a little bit. He's such a good universal character because he's not overly mature, he's not overly immature. He's smart, he's clever, but he's also a little bit lacking in confidence. He's not only the kid you wish you could be, he's also the kid that you are, and it's really difficult to strike that balance with this character. It's very, very well executed in that way. The story, Rite of Passage all the way through, is written by Alan Grant, and the art's by Norman Breyfogle. And Norman Breyfogle is my favorite Batman artist. There is just a great dynamic all the way through for all of the characters and on the Bat costume and the Robin costume, and there's just this very unique aesthetic to it that comes from Breyfogle's art. And again, it's a good thing that this version of Robin wasn't just created by Breyfogle. George Perez influences in here. Breyfogle's in there. There's aspects of it that come from several other artists of the era, and that's part of what makes this character so well-rounded to begin with. So let me know what you guys thought of Batman Rite of Passage. It's a hard story to get your hands on. You might be able to find the issues, but the only reprint of it that I know of at this point is in the Robin Tragedy and Triumph trade. And it's the first story, and then the second story is the second Robin miniseries, which is weird that they would reprint the second miniseries without reprinting the first one, sandwiched between those two, but whatever. It's a really, really good story. It's a fantastic character story. It's lacking in action. It tries to make up for that by the end of the book in the very last issue, but it's always more about Bruce and Tim's relationship, and specifically what Tim sees himself as. By the end of the story, Tim really wants to be Robin, but he doesn't want to be undeserving of the title, and he doesn't want to go into it blind. He wants to have this existential quest that tells him what is Robin outside of the necessary partner of Batman, and do I have it in me to get to that mantle if I'm going to wear that costume. So yeah, it's a really great story. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, whether you agree or disagree. Make sure to watch the Lonely Place of Dying review, which is in the description, and make sure to follow me on Twitter. A link to that is also in the description, so you can go there and hear me talk about random things all the time. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.